Hello, this is Nicole Block. How you guys doing? You can probably tell from my voice I have a bit of a cold. Today we're going to talk a little bit about public relations, and I want to show you a couple of videos about a case study of bad public relations when there was a oil spill off the coast of Louisiana. Let's get started. So, what is public relations? Public relations is the art and social science of analyzing trends, predicting their consequences, counseling organization leaders, and implementing planned programs of action that serve the organization's best interest. This happened to me. It didn't happen to me. I was an intern, a PR intern in college, and the whole goal of the publicity firm was to get these minor celebrities on magazine covers or get them interviewed by radio stations or just get them some publicity about their projects. That was the goal of the publicist. Another publicist's job is to make sure that if there is some sort of disaster for their company, for their client, for their celebrity client, that they handle the media in a way that mitigates the negative results of that disaster. So, what is a press release? It's a written, audio taped, or videotaped matter about a book, event, person, or program presented by its promoters or principals to the media for editorial comment and free coverage. So, if you have an event that you want to publicize, you would write a one-page description about it, making it sound really fun. Maybe getting a quote from the president of that organization talking about the significance of it. And then you'd hand it over to newspaper editors and any other media people who might be interested in promoting it. And they may actually print your press release verbatim, or they may just pull a quote from it. But it encourages them to talk about your event. It gives them the information to do so. Makes it easy for the writers. I'm going to show you a little video now about the disaster, what happened technically off the coast of Louisiana, and before we go into how they handled this disaster.
April 20th, 2010. 11 workers died and 17 were seriously injured by an explosion on the Deepwater Horizon, an offshore drilling rig located approximately 50 miles off the coast of Louisiana. The rig burned for 2 days, eventually sinking and triggering the largest oil spill in U.S. history, as oil and gas spewed up from the sea floor. The Deepwater Horizon had been drilling an oil well in 5,000 feet of water in an area of the Gulf of Mexico known as...
So the problem was that British Petroleum did not handle this crisis well in the media. The next slide is a radio story about how poorly the crisis was handled. Just to give you a little more background about this event, the sea was covered in oil for many days, and people could see the oil gushing online. It was being streamed, and they couldn't figure out a way to cap the oil and stop it from spilling. It was spilling and spilling and spilling. And it was devastating the wildlife in the ocean. The shrimp were dying, the birds were dying, the fish were dying. So all the local fishermen and shrimpers were losing their jobs. It even affected waiters and waitresses who couldn't serve the fish and the shrimp. They lost business. The restaurants lost business. So a lot of people were affected financially because of this disaster, in addition to the environmental impact it had. So let's talk about how British Petroleum handled the media during this disaster. This is a 7-minute radio program from National Public Radio discussing how horribly British Petroleum dealt with this disaster.
Public relations is very big business. And over the next month, we're going to look at the PR industry, who does it, how it works, and the extent of its influence. Our first story is about a PR disaster. It came 1 year ago this week when that oil rig drilling a well for BP exploded in the Gulf of Mexico. As NPR's Elizabeth Sjogren reports, BP's response was a textbook example of how not to do public relations in a crisis.
Within hours of the Deepwater Horizon explosion, Glenn DeJean was on the phone. He had retired a year earlier after working with BP and Amoco for 30 years. He wanted back in the game.
Every day thereafter, for about a week, I kept saying, "Do you want my help? Do you want my help?"
DeJean watched from the sidelines as BP executives made the company look arrogant and callous. They declared it wasn't their accident and blamed their contractors.
And I was literally yelling at the TV set. I thought that the first reactions from BP should have been more humble and more conciliatory. I was very upset that they didn't apologize. It sounded like they were hiding behind the lawyer's skirts.
Were they?
In my opinion, they were.
Still, when BP called DeJean about a week into the disaster, he jumped into his car. He was sent as an ambassador to groups of fishermen and other people across South Louisiana.
They were so scared that they were going to lose their way of life. I really got real emotional about it.
His accent told them he shared their roots. At one meeting, a retired history teacher asked if he knew they were descendants of French pirates, and that long ago British pirates raped and plundered their ancestors.
And then she squeezes my hands and she says, "Now tell me, son, does BP stand for British pirates?" And I had to explain to her that no, we were not British pirates, and BP meant well, and we will fix the situation.
But DeJean's efforts were eclipsed by the company's PR missteps. DeJean knew one reason the company was so unprepared. CEO Tony Hayward had slashed BP's public and government relations shop to cut costs. So Hayward was listening to outside consultants and rookies. They let him walk the beaches in a starched white shirt. They didn't muzzle him despite repeated insensitive comments like this one.
There's no one who wants this thing over more than I do. I'd like my life back.
It seemed like every day he was making a new gaffe. He didn't understand the animal that is the media. He didn't understand the public's perception of a foreigner in South Louisiana.
So when a group of Louisiana state officials asked about Hayward, DeJean didn't hold back.
I said, well, the only time Tony Hayward opens his mouth was to change feet.
Current BP officials wouldn't comment on the record for this story, but people familiar with BP's crisis control effort and outside experts say early on BP didn't have a PR strategy. It failed to communicate the three key messages the public needed to hear: that BP was accountable for the disaster, deeply concerned about the harm it was causing, and had a plan for what to do. Experts also agree Hayward's propensity to say the wrong thing made him the wrong choice to be the face of the crisis. And BP's board took too long to figure that out.
Clearly, he did not mean to be mean, even though in some cases he came across that way.
Glenn Selig is a crisis management consultant whose clients include former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. Selig says instead of rescuing Hayward's image, a slogan the company adopted made things even worse.
We will get this done. We will make this right.
They were putting out this messaging saying, trust us, we'll be able to make things right, at a time when they obviously couldn't. The oil was gushing like crazy, and they couldn't cap it. I think that was a horrible misstep.
Selig says it was like a doctor in an emergency room full of dying people telling family members that everything will be fine.
It's very hard to believe that everything's going to be okay when you're still in a crisis. What we need to hear at that point is we're doing everything we can to get it under control.
Clark Cawood, director of Northwestern University's Graduate Public Relations Department, is working on a book that delves into BP's crisis response fiasco. Cawood says it was bad public relations for the company to cover up the seriousness of the accident and that BP wasn't ready to fix it.
They should have been prepared, I think, to admit that they probably didn't have it under control, because they didn't have it under control.
And later on, when scientists found signs of huge plumes of oil in the deep water, Kaywood says BP executives were wrong to deny their existence.
They were either uncomfortable with telling the truth or unable to tell the truth.
What grade would you give the PR or crisis management effort?
I'd have to go with a grade that in our graduate school would be a failing grade.
BP does get some compliments for replacing Hayward with Mississippi native Bob Dudley, creating an independent $20 billion compensation fund, and running ads that feature Gulf Coast natives.
I know people are wondering, now that the well is capped, is BP going to meet its commitments? I was born in New Orleans. My family still lives here. I'm going to be here until we make this right.
And BP insiders say the company's social media ramp-up helped counteract earlier PR failures.
I think they did a great job considering the pressure they were under on so many other fronts.
Steve Marino came on board as a consultant in mid-May to lead BP's social media team. Before the explosion, BP had no dedicated social media staff and only a couple hundred followers on Facebook. Marino set up a YouTube channel. He says the detailed technical briefings posted there helped people understand what BP was up against. During the peak of the crisis, tens of thousands of people were following BP on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Marino says people's rage towards the company came through loud and clear.
We let people vent their anger and their frustration on Facebook or in response to any of the tweets that we had put up there. I think the best thing that social media did was give people that outlet and allow them to feel that BP was hearing them, which they were.
Twitter gave BP a way to get its news out fast, without the press in the middle, and it created a new way to interact with traditional media. On the day BP finally capped the well, Marino was monitoring CNN. He heard an expert guest incorrectly tell viewers that something was amiss.
And when we were on the phone with the producer of CNN, we literally just told them to read the most recent tweet, and they used that tweet to correct the story.
Yet BP's image is still in tatters. Retiree Glenn Dijon wants to help BP rescue it by pushing the company to do more to restore the Gulf Coast.
I want to be able to proudly tell people I worked for BP. I don't want people to snicker by saying that we were an environmental corporate criminal.
Dijon says BP will start doing the right thing, or he'll become the company's biggest critic. Elizabeth Sjogren, NPR News.
So what are some lessons about public relations in the digital age? Number one, large companies should have a comprehensive and up-to-date strategy in place before a calamity occurs. In BP's situation, the engineering information was unknown to public relations, so they overestimated the company's level of preparedness. They designated a dead scientist as one of its wildlife experts. That's sad. Listed out of business Japanese home shopping network as one of its equipment suppliers. They didn't even know what they were talking about. How could they communicate effectively to the public through the media if they didn't even have the correct information? Company leaders should be careful in what they say. Tony Hayward, the CEO of BP, said, "We're sorry for the massive disruption it's caused the Gulf residents' lives. There is no one who wants this over more than I do. I would like my life back." That is very insensitive and doesn't sound like he cares about the residents. It sounds like he cares about himself. Bad move.
The Gulf spill is a tragedy that never should have happened. I'm Tony Hayward. BP has taken full responsibility for cleaning up the spill in the Gulf. We've helped organise the largest environmental response in this country's history. More than 2 million feet of boom, 30 planes and over 1,300 boats are working to protect the shoreline. Where oil reaches the shore, thousands of people are ready to clean it up. We will honour all legitimate claims, and our clean-up efforts will not come at any cost to taxpayers. To those affected and your families, I'm deeply sorry. The Gulf is home for thousands of BP employees, and we all feel the impact. To all the volunteers and for the strong support of the government, thank you. We know it is our responsibility to keep you informed and do everything we can so that this never happens again.
So they had to shell out $50 million for a Better Late Than Never advertising and PR campaign because of the way they handled it initially. They had to spend all this money to try and fix their reputation in commercials like that. So more lessons for emergencies. Number one, company needs to hold themselves accountable. They can't blame others. In BP's situation, they blamed Halliburton, which made one of its parts, but they should say, hey, we ordered that part, we approved that part, it's our responsibility, and they did not say that. Company needs to communicate their concern for the public, not for themselves. And they need to communicate that they do indeed have a plan, and what that plan is, not just say, hey, trust us. The results were from this catastrophe, both environmentally, both financially, and of course, poorly for BP's own reputation. Because of all this, their stock plummeted from $60 a share to $28 a share during the crisis. They have rebounded a bit, and I checked recently, and it's now around $38 a share, but not up to what it used to be. And just for fun, here's a kind of Saturday Night Live style skit from Upright Citizens Brigade with Kate McKinnon, making fun of the way BP handled the situation. It's about a 3-minute video.
According to the charts, that's the best plan of action.
Yeah, great. Don't worry about it. It's a small spill on a very large table.
Sir, I think we are underestimating just how much coffee was spilled.
Yeah, that's a lot of coffee.
Well, we better hurry up because it's almost reached my laptop.
Calm down. Boom.
It's also going to destroy all the fish.
Oh boy. Okay. Boom. Look at that.
My God, it's encroaching on my map of Louisiana.
Okay. Okay. Look. Oh no. Fish.
Laptop.
Okay.
Map.
Okay. I'm sorry. Look. Oh no. Fish.
Laptop.
Okay.
Wait. I've got a brilliant idea.
Oh. Okay. Jones, you gotta hurry up. I think the public is getting suspicious.
All set. Damn. Didn't work.
Oh my God, we are really screwed now. Look, garbage will fall into the coffee cups, stopping further spillage.
Now there's just coffee and garbage.
Wait, I've got an idea. Damn, I really thought that would work.
Well, maybe it doesn't work right away, but let's observe it for 3 hours and then reassess it.
Okay. We just wasted 3 hours. Damn it.
That's everything I've got.
God.
Gentlemen from Halliburton are here?
Send him in.
Gentlemen, we've...
Oh my God! You guys are partly responsible for this. You provided these styrofoam cups knowing they were unstable.
Oh, no. Don't put this on us. You know what? Halliburton doesn't have to listen to this. We are out of here.
I've got Kevin Costner on the phone. He'll know what to do for sure.
How big is the spill?
Pretty major, Mr. Costner.
Do you have a golf ball?
I have a ping pong ball.
Good, now throw it at the spill. What happened?
Nothing.
You guys are fucked.
So United Airlines had their own catastrophe recently when somebody videotaped a passenger being dragged off a United Airlines flight. Let's check this one out. Oops. Let's try it again.
I believe this is when he got back on the plane, John. Let's listen and then we'll talk about it.
Pilots drive the whole. Can't they rent a car for the pilots and have them drive? Oh my God! Oh my! My God! No! My guys! My God! What are you doing?
I have to go home. I have to go home. I have to go home. I have to go. Just kill me. Just kill me. Kill me. Just kill me. I have to go home. Kill me. Just kill me. Just kill me.
So how did United Airlines handle this? Let's see.
Talk about turbulence. United better fasten its seatbelt. Attacked on Twitter, bored as a doctor, leave as a patient. We put the hospital in hospitality. Parodied on late night.
If we say you fly, you fly. If not, tough.
Look at what you did here!
Give us a problem and we'll drag your ass off the plane.
This movie clip from Airplane has taken off.
Everything's...
The word of the week.
The reason why reaccommodate was the word of the day is because that's what the CEO said. We apologize, we had to reaccommodate these passengers. And it, once again, just like BP, was not a authentic and empathetic way of apologizing.
Talk about
Oops, sorry about that. So the stock market price for United, the high was at $83 and it's now at $59. So once again, it's over time, this affected the bottom line of United Airlines because of the poor way it handled this disaster. So I want to do a discussion on Canvas, and I want you guys to think about what did United Airlines do wrong? And maybe you can do a little research online to find out how they handled it, and then also how could they have handled it better? Do you have ideas on ways they could have made it better from the beginning and not affect their stock price the way it did? So go ahead and go to Canvas and participate in the discussion for 10 points. Talk to you later.